Hello and welcome to Homo Politicos. You're watching Enterprise Television. Kingsley Bassi is my name. A warm welcome to the program today. Let's turn attention to core political matters in the country. Well, one particular matter today on the program as we look at a story that has captivated the nation and stirred profound debate. That's the presidential pardon of Farouk Lawan, a former Nigerian lawmaker whose journey through justice has been nothing short of dramatic. Yes, Farouk Lawan, once a very powerful voice in the Nigerian National Assembly, came under intense scrutiny back in 2016 when allegations surfaced that he had solicited and accepted a bribe as part of a controversial fuel subsidy probe. Now, the story began at the start of 2026 when the House of Representatives put together another committee to investigate widespread corruption in the subsidy regime, a probe that then exposed deep-seated rot within the system. And in June, mid-2026, Farouk Lawan was arrested by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission following an undercover operation that, at the time, caught him demanding $500,000 as a bribe to water down a report implicating certain oil marketers. If you remember the story very well, then you know the role Femi Otedola played in this. Now, his arrest marked a pivotal moment, signaling an aggressive anti-corruption stance by the government. The trial that followed was closely watched by lots and lots of Nigerians, and throughout 2016 and into 2017, Lawan, that's Farouk Lawan, because there's, not Ahmed Lawan, but, that's not the Lawan we're talking about. Farouk Lawan faced charges of corruption and money laundering. And in August 2017, the Federal High Court in Abuja found him guilty of money laundering related to the bribe he accepted. And then he was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Now, the conviction was hailed by some as a landmark victory for the rule of law and the fight against corruption. At the time, that was the first tenure of the Muhammadu Buhari administration, God rest his soul. Yet, this particular case was, mad in, there were lots of controversies too. And supporters of Farouk Lawan did say that he was, set up and that the case had political undertones. They claimed that the prosecution was selective and that, the goal was to silence more like, to silence the prominent critic. But critics, on the other hand, saw the verdict as a clear message that public officials must never be caught in things like that. Public office must never be a platform for personal enrichment. Now, fast forward to October 2025. We're talking the present. The president, with the recommendation of the State Security Council, has granted Farouk Lawan a presidential pardon. And this particular case now takes the new turn. The pardon has reopened discussions about justice, about forgiveness, and the fight against corruption in the country. Now, the big question on Homo Politicos today is that this presidential pardon, is this an act of clemency that fosters national reconciliation? Or does this risk really undermining demands or decades, does this really risk undermining decades of anti-corruption efforts by different agencies of government? Let's talk about this today on the program. Let's hear from my guest, a political commentator, and let's get talking about this. Welcome again to Homo Politicos. I'm joined virtually today by Benga Yonuga Paul. Benga, many thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on the show. I'm glad to be here to talk about this all interesting topic.
Appreciate that. Let's get talking, shall we then? Straight to the conversation. Well, not lots of Nigerians are happy that a former lawmaker once investigated, tried, and convicted for corruption has now been granted clemency by the president. Do you think that this, is going to further foster national reconciliation, as some have said, or this further, undermines the job, the anti-corruption push by different agencies of government?
All right. Well, on this issue, I am neither here nor there because statutorily it is the prerogative of the president to grant national pardon as cases, and at the level of the state governors to grant pardons to prisoners when they go around prisons and use their prerogative for pardon to let some prisoners go in the prison based on recommendations from maybe prison officials, the judicial officials, and some other bodies who would write to the governor for pardon to be granted for such person under control. So I am not here nor there because I will be a liar to say I don't know that there is a political undertone to the pardon, and I will be also a fool or a hater of due process and law if I also join the bandwagon to say the president shouldn't grant pardon to certain individuals. Don't forget that he was not the only one on the list of people granted pardon by the president, both living and dead. People like Herbert Macaulay were granted pardon by the president, state pardon. I think people like Ken Sarowa, even though they are late, they were granted pardon by the president and a host of
Posthumous.
other people like that. So why are we singling out Farouk Lawan's case
But
for
they're not the same circumstances, you would
discussion?
say, right? Farouk Lawan was convicted
All,
for
all, all,
for corruption. Ken
all
Saro-Wiwa,
pardon, all pardon.
yeah, Ken Saro-Wiwa for fighting for justice. But Macaulay, similar situation, but
My brother.
Farouk Lawan's case, completely different. Someone who was found to have been corrupt, granted pardon. He had served his term. Shouldn't we let things lie? But then again, that's what the lots of Nigerians are saying. If someone had been tried by a court of competent jurisdiction, convicted for a crime after months of trials, shouldn't this person just be what the court say?
That is why. That is why. That is why. Uh, that's why I told you that I would be a fool or a liar if I say there is no political undertone to the pardon. You and I know that once somebody has served a prison sentence, he or she will no longer be eligible to contest for any political office, and I don't think they are also eligible to hold any political office, either as a minister, commissioner, high commissioner, or something like that. So I'm sure that what this pardon does is it clears the way for his appointment in the future or his ability to contest in the future. That's what this pardon will do for him. But of course, I would also be an hater if I am saying that the president, because there are people who have committed more heinous crimes, not just in this country, all over the world, who have been granted presidential pardon by their various countries before. I mean, Victor Booth, who was an arms smuggler that was arrested in the US. The Russian government had to force the hand of US government to release him to them in exchange for a basketball player that was arrested in the US. That's why they won't say they are not unaware of the heinous crime of quelling battles in several countries through his gun running business. The same thing when the former president of the United States was about to resign, that's Joe Biden.
Joe
We
Biden.
saw how he grants clemency yes, to even his own son. This one is not just an outsider now that you will say, oh, maybe because he's an outsider. So you look at it as nepotism and abuse of office. He granted amnesty to his son, and even to the extent that the guy must not be sued for almost 10 years after he leaves office or something like that. So what does this tell you? It is the prerogative of the president to grant pardon, and the president has not erred in any way.
Yeah,
And you
no
see,
one is
sometimes
blaming. Yeah,
the so so I understand. I'm not saying they are blaming president, but you see, I'm going somewhere. The president
okay.
has not erred, and if you're saying this affects anti-corruption fight, yes, it may dampen the anti-corruption fight a bit, but the fact that he has already served his jail term for the offense so committed shows to you that justice has taken I would even want to say the president is smart in that he is giving the amnesty after justice has taken its full course already, not before justice has taken its full course already. So I
Does
must
that
give
matter?
kudos
Does that
to
matter,
the
Gbenga?
president on
Does that
that
matter,
one.
Gbenga? Because I mean, think
It
about
does
this. No,
it does
how does that matter though? But think about this. People might then go into crime, knowing that, oh well, they could, a worst case scenario, serve some months, maybe a few years, and when they are done, eventually they would have squandered millions, maybe billions of funds, public funds, meant for the good of Nigerians, knowing that they would just serve a few months, maybe get a sentence of a few years, and that they would come back to the space again because they would definitely get clemency, some presidential pardon, and the cycle will continue if this is encouraged. It's not the first time we're seeing a
you
president
and
do this.
I
Former President
you
Muhammadu
and
Buhari, just before he left, did grant the same presidential pardon to two former governors, one of Plateau and Taraba State, who had been convicted, and they had served their terms too. I mean, is this the way to go? That's the big question. Should we continue in this line, continue to grant politicians found corrupt presidential pardon?
you see, I won't say it is the way to go. Neither would I not say. Well, neither would I say it is not the way.
Wow. Connect. Yeah, connectivity challenge. Yeah.
What the elder sees sitting down, he may not see. If you like, let him go and climb this. How about now?
Well,
Can you hear me better
we're
now?
struggling to patch through, but yes, it is better now.
Okay, Burj Khalifa or Burj Al Arab. Okay, but I am sure that the president knows what he sees when the recommendation. Don't forget that it is not the president that will cherry pick or handpick some of these people by himself alone. Most of the time, they are recommendations from a whole network of people, members of the Council of State, members of the traditional rulers, members of the even members of the what do you call it, legislative arm of government, and a whole lot of different pressure groups. So these lists are not compiled by the president, and that is why sometimes when some presidents do not get some of this pardon done during their tenure, I don't blame them because people will say, Shebi during Obasanjo's time, he was a Yoruba man. He didn't grant pardon to Abiola and recommend him. Some of these things may not even cross their mind. And it is people who work with them that will bring these things to their notice. And those who work with them to get some of this information based on tons and tons of letters they receive from various groups in the society. And based on different considerations, they will decide, okay, let's answer this group of the society or that group of the society. And when the thing gets to the desk of the president, yes, he has the final say, but he is not the only one who makes the decision from the beginning. And if his people who made the decision can convince him that maybe for national security, for political reasons, for this or that, this thing needs to be done, he will have to do it. Nobody does it alone. Your program that you do, this program that we are on today, you don't make the decision for everything that goes on air today alone. There are cameramen who work with you. There are soundmen who work with you. There are production assistants who work with you, and a lot of them will bring in factors that will affect your show or the things you want to even talk about on the show, and you will not be a successful person as a presenter, as a journalist, if you don't factor some of their opinion into consideration in your decision making process. Even though the final shots might still lie with you, and in some cases it doesn't even lie with you. It might be with one organ at the top somewhere that we don't see, but it is you that we will see in public. And don't forget, whether you like it or not, yes, the president is the number one person in the country, but almost all over the world, every president have organ at the tops that they may not report to them, but they know they have to consider their opinions in getting things done. Even Vladimir Putin, as powerful as he seems to be, there are Russian oligarchs whom he knows that when they sneeze, he has to consider what they are sneezing about if he wants to remain in office and be successful. The same thing with Donald Trump, as independent as he's trying to be. So, and I'm not saying this to absolve the president of this. What I'm saying is that at the end of the day, the president sees a lot more, knows a lot more, understands a lot more nuances to every issue than a lot of us will ever do in one lifetime. So, but if we can sometimes try to picture ourselves in his shoe, maybe we too will have a bit of understanding of some of the things that might likely prompt this decision, and therefore our criticism of some of his action or inaction will be more tempered towards logic, towards critical understanding of the issue, rather than just start going
For
out
for
to condemn his
for
actions.
for,
But can I
for
quickly talk about Farouk Lawan
well, we've been talking
before
about
I
Farouk
respond?
Lawan, really. Why not?
No, no. You know, we are looking at the case as a case of national interest, but as an individual,
Yes.
you know, the case that sent him to prison. I was a bit privy. There were members of the National Assembly that served with him during the time when Chief Mrs. Patricia Ite was
Yeah.
the Speaker of the House of
House
Reps that
of
time.
Reps.
Yes, when she was House of Rep. I don't know whether that woman is still alive, but I pray that she's still alive, because I've not heard anything about her for a long time. But the gist, you know, I was at a gathering. It was a New Year's gathering that year, I think around 2018, 2019, thereabout. I think it was before COVID or after COVID. But the source of the matter is that there were a lot of that National Assembly tenure member in that gathering, and they were gisting about Madam Patricia Ete, and that gist dovetailed into Farouk Lawan. They said, they alleged that it was Madam Patricia Ete that cursed Farouk Lawan, that as he disgraced her out of office that time, that he too will be disgraced out of office. And the gist that they alleged was that, you know, when the former speaker was impeached and Madam Ete was put in the speaker's lodge in, I think, the hotel, that big hotel in Abuja that all these presidential people use.
Transcorp.
I've forgotten
Transcorp.
the name. Yeah, I think it's Transcorp, So they were bringing bill every day that Madam Patricia every day of her stay. At that time, she was spending maybe 5 million naira a day. And the woman was shocked that, what am I eating that I'm spending 5 million naira a day? Meanwhile, I didn't ask you to put me here. I have a lodge already as a member of the National Assembly. The person who was removed from the Speaker's lodge, he hasn't stayed there for 4 years. I can use the place, but you guys that insisted that the place needs to be renovated for me. And the woman, because she wanted to help Nigeria keep Nigeria's money and be prudent about Nigeria's spending, said, let me go back to my lodge so that we wouldn't be wasting this amount of money on frivolities when the nation is still bleeding and needs some of this for investment. Apparently, according to the allegation by those members, I can't mention it, as journalists, our job, we must protect our sources. So, is that she, because of that action of trying to save money for Nigeria, she stepped on the foot of powerful people, especially people in the appropriation subcommittee, and I've forgotten which other subcommittee they said that was in charge of, all of this money that are being spent by the National Assembly. And I think Farouk Lawal is one
One Benga, gives a bit of a background from his point of view, and some of those allegations around this particular story. But yeah, hopefully we can reconnect with Benga as we begin to wrap the conversation this morning. We're talking about Farouk Lawan. Yes, Benga.
The network was interrupted. So they said because of her prudence, that was how they set her up to suspend her, to impeach her. And when she was impeached, she felt really angry because those people were talking about how when people are faithful and truthful, that there is a way God protects them. They were talking about their own tenure in that National Assembly, how they refused to eat the national cake anyhow, like some other people. And those other people who ate the national cake anyhow face disgrace, but they, despite not living with too much money from the National Assembly, from their stay in the National Assembly, that they are still comfortable, they are still peaceful, no EFCC is running after them. That was how the conversation came about, and that gave me an insight into the Farouk Lawan issue more, knowing fully well that, the case between him and Otedola that sent him to prison, Otedola actually caught him on camera. It was like that Ganduje case versus that journalist that time, I think Jafar. But because Otedola is equally powerful and well connected, what they did to Jafar against Ganduje, nobody can try it with Otedola. So, and that is why we were able to get justice. Finally, the fact that this guy was given clemency, I don't think it affects whether those crazy politicians who are bent on stealing the nation dry, whether they will change or not, because at the end of the day, many of them don't care about presidential pardon. They don't even care about name. So what will change them is when we have laws that prescribe instant death, like they do in China. You know that all these politicians, when they want to force something on the masses, they will say, they will quote China, they will quote how they do in the US, they will quote how they do in the UK. So let us always quote back for them to how they do in China with corrupt politicians, which is killing them if they are caught with their hand in the cookie jar. Except that one happens, that is the only thing I believe can steer Nigerian politicians to doing the right thing and not being on the wrong side of the law. Other than that, either clemency or no clemency, it won't deter them from the bad path that those who have chosen to follow it have already chosen to follow.
Well, for many Nigerians, they see this differently. For some, okay, it's possible this guy comes back to the political scene. It's most likely, maybe, not most likely, he's maybe going to contest, or the reference did say that he's maybe going to be appointed, or simply stay in the background with his, some political value. He brings some political value in some way. Maybe he's resourceful politically in his local government, his constituency, or his state, and then maybe bring that. Some have said, oh, this is some value, because he has now spoken about this presidential pardon and thanks the president for granting him this presidential pardon, and he says it's a new dawn for him. For some Nigerians, this this clemency is some political tool before presidents now, or used by presidents now to for some political advantage. And looking at the flip side, and that is the side or the perspective, the viewpoint of anti-graft agents in the country. You want to get into their head, and you're wondering, how are they thinking? What's their reasoning regarding this? Because what might give them joy, what might give them satisfaction in their job would be to, after years of investigating a particular matter, they see prosecution happen duly and conviction follows. But with cases like this, even after conviction, someone is jailed, maybe serve their term completely and then get pardoned, they might get demoralized. But of course, that has been touched as well by Gbenga, my guest this morning. We've got to go. We'll leave things here. We'll continue to monitor development. As mentioned at the start of the program, it wasn't just Farouk Lawan who got the presidential pardon. The likes of Ken Saro-Wiwa, Herbert Macaulay, got posthumous, right? While Farouk Lawan, definitely not posthumous, but Ken Saro-Wiwa, Herbert Macaulay, Ken Saro-Wiwa, by the way, and the rest of his colleagues at the time got their posthumous presidential pardon, while Herbert Macaulay also posthumous presidential pardon. Well, 175 of them were said to have been granted presidential pardon, and that was announced after that meeting, that hybrid meeting, virtual and physical, between the president and the Council of State. We'll leave things there as mentioned. We'll continue to monitor development as we talk some more about this in coming days. One continues to wonder what this means for justice, what this means for the fight against corruption in the country. I'd like to thank you, Gbenga Yonuga Paul, for being a part of the conversation this morning. Well, Gbenga, there I suppose connection challenge one more time, but yes, Gbenga has been my guest. He's a political commentator, and he joined me virtually today on Homo Politicus. Until next time, please stop by the comment section. Drop your comment. Let's know what you think. Does this undermine corruption, anti-corruption efforts by several administrations in the country, or you think this maybe is good for national reconciliation? Stop by the comment section and let's get talking there as well. We'll be reading and of course responding to your thoughts. Kingsley Bassi is my name. You've been watching Homo Politicus, Enterprise Television. Until next time, we'll say may God continue to bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Bye for now.